ProFunds Mortgages, helping you become an informed investor with great security and returns. Realize your dreams. It's only one investment away. Visit us at profunds.ca.
Any opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants personally and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers, Rogers TV, or of Greybrook Securities, Inc. Please consult a professional investment advisor before making investment decisions. Hey, it's Rav. You're watching The Everyday Investor, the hottest real estate investment show in the world. That's right, I said it. I don't care who knows it. This is the show where ordinary people come on and make extraordinary investments with extraordinary returns. And I say ordinary people, but you know, they're all special people to me. You want to make sure that you get out your pen and your paper on the show because we are going to go through some numbers. Very high school friendly. I barely finished high school, got kicked out of 4 of them. So I made this show designed in and around yours truly, Rav Toor. So you want to get your paper and your pen out, and we're going to ask the questions. What is the return on my investment? Anytime anybody gives you an investment opportunity, you want to be able to ask the most important questions. The first question is, what's the return on my investment? Number 2 is, when do I get that return on my investment? Is it in 5 years? Is it, biannually? Is it every single year? When do I get that return? Thirdly, what's the investment amount? How much money do you need for me to put into this investment for me to get that return? And number 4, what is the worst case scenario? What is the risk? Today's topic, I'm super excited. We're going to learn how to make money with multifamily homes, investing in multifamily. Sometimes you can invest in apartment buildings, 40 units, 50 units, sometimes just little 2 or 3, 4 or 5. And I have my good friend Ray Ostrander, who's an expert guest host on the show to teach us that. He's an investor, he's a teacher, he's a trainer, he's a speaker, he's a good-looking, bald, white guy that I love so much. Thanks for being on the show, my friend.
Yeah, great to be here.
Yeah, so, when the producer and I were talking about different topics, and, Ray, you can do any type, topic. You teach lease to owns, you teach people how to flip, you teach people how to get the seller to give you money, and,
sure.
All that kind of stuff. There's not a lot of people that are versed in the multifamily unit. When you're looking at a 12-plex or a 15-plex, when people come to me and they say, Rav, what should I invest in? I always say to them, Ray, and correct me if I'm wrong, that it really doesn't matter. It's kind of whatever you feel comfortable with. But the one thing I say where there is a graduated step would be in the multifamily. I mean, somebody could get into a flip, somebody could get into a buy and hold, somebody could get into a lease to hold, all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to multifamily, it's probably not the first thing you want to do. What are your thoughts on that?
For me, it was the first thing I did.
There you go.
So it's hard for me to comment any other way.
End of show.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's switch spots. So that was the very first thing you did.
First thing I did. But I think it's important for people to understand that's what I had to do. And the reason why I say that is when I started, I really wasn't working with any of my own money. I didn't have a lot of down payment money. I didn't have very good credit. So my ability to qualify was very low. And I worked with a mentor who helped me understand that I needed to find some way to finance the property. And sometimes it's easier to be able to get a multifamily or a commercial mortgage than it is to get a typical residential mortgage, because the property has to qualify rather than me personally.
Okay, so say that again, because you've taught me that to me before. You're saying that it's easier sometimes to purchase and be qualified for these big babies as opposed to just a small one, because if it was just me, then they look at my income, they look at everything that Rav's doing. But if it's a 10-plex, 8-plex, 6-plex, they're actually looking at the numbers of the properties, the different tenants. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Well, sure. I mean, imagine if you're a lender. When you're lending money, the biggest thing you're concerned about is, am I going to get paid back?
Yeah.
And how is the borrower going to be able to make those payments? So when they're looking at me personally and I buy a home, they're looking at my income and my debt service ratios, all those things. But when I'm buying a multiplex, they want to see that the income on that property is enough to be able to overcome all the expenses, the debt service, and make those payments. So it's sometimes easier to qualify for those properties.
And so where I would be afraid is, the price tag for these properties. Now I know you're a fan of Toronto, you're a fan of Windsor, you're a fan of Kapuskasing. It doesn't really matter to Ray where this property is, as long as the numbers work. So if we're going to buy a 10-plex, it might be hard in Toronto if the price tag is a couple $1 million, but we can still find that 10-plex in other places. The investment doesn't have to be in our own backyard.
Absolutely. And I think that's some of the fundamental analysis you do on a market that's specific. And I think, for me, that is important. but I also recognize that a lot of these outlying markets have great returns because the rents are high enough, but the property values are much lower. The first property I purchased was in Gravenhurst, Ontario. Small town, still small town, even smaller at the time, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And I don't mind purchasing in areas like, well, it's Windsor or Chatham or those types of markets as well, as long as the cash flow's there.
Yeah, as long as the numbers work.
Yeah.
Okay. And so 15 years ago, that was your first property, Gravenhurst.
Yeah.
How many units was it?
At the time, it was 3 residential units and 3 commercial units.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
All in one building?
In one building.
So you had 6 different tenants, 2 furnaces, 1 furnace?
The heating source for that property was electric for the residential units, and then each of the commercial units had their own furnace.
That's great.
Yeah.
15 years ago. And so, Ray, we're going to take a break here in a second. When we come back, I want to talk, more about why did you get into this world of investing? Talk a little bit about that. So, 15 years ago, you must have been, 10 years old.
Yeah.
You look young. But how did you get in? I mean, there's just no choice. This is what I'm doing, or was something you're exploring, or? Yeah.
So how I started was I went through an infomercial, and do you want to talk about that after the break, or?
I'll cut you out. We can keep talking, and then we'll. Okay, you know what? Let's talk about it after the break.
Cool.
You now have students that you mentor. You're coaching. I think a couple of people are going to come on the show here later on. You're having fun. You're loving life.
Yeah.
Okay. That's great. Good. Great to have you on the show.
Cool.
You're watching The Everyday Investor with Ray Ostrander. The topic today is how to invest in multi-unit properties. You don't want to miss this one. It's going to be a doozy. Thanks for watching, everyone. Whenever you consider to invest in real estate, always ask 4 questions to start. Number 1, what's the return on the investment? Number 2, when do I get that return on the investment? Number 3, what is the minimum cash amount needed? And number 4, what is the risk in the worst case scenario?
Your most profitable choice for real estate investment financing, specializing in multi-residential, commercial, construction, and development, with access to private funds for almost any type of deal. For more information, visit profunds.ca.